Hi, thank you so much for coming to our session and clicking on our link to talk about a self-advocate's roadmap to employment. I'm Amanda Baker, and I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself in a moment, but I know that we share a passion about employment because we have gone through the ups and downs and everything that you can go through when you have a disability or trying to work and maneuver systems. So I know that's why we wanted to get together and do this presentation for you guys. And Sarah works full-time and I am self-employed, and we both have extensive background. And we met each other a few years ago because we both are on the Florida Developmental Disability Council, and we decided that we wanted to get together and do this session because we feel it's so important. So thank you for joining us. Now I'll let Sarah introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Goldman. I am a self-advocate, and I know Amanda and I will be going into our stories in a few minutes, but just wanted to say thank you for joining us and look forward to presenting with Amanda today.
Awesome. So Sarah, do you want to tell everybody what our session is going to cover today?
Sure. So we're going to talk about some of the agencies and services that individuals can use when they're transitioning into employment. We're also going to talk about policies, like employment policies that can assist individuals with disabilities. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to effectively advocate for your needs in the workplace. And then I think we're also going to do Q&A at the end for any questions that have come in.
Right, and we have our email addresses at the end of the presentation. So if something wasn't covered in the presentation today that you're missing, just shoot us an email and we'll be happy to answer your question. So I think we're ready to move on. Sarah, you're going to start with your story.
Yes, so as I mentioned, my name is Sarah and I am a self-advocate. I was born with cerebral palsy, so I use a power wheelchair and a walker to get around. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work, and my focus and my passion is really in legislative advocacy and being an advocate for individuals with disabilities. And I currently work for a state representative as a legislative aide, and I'm hoping to one day eventually become a lobbyist for people with disabilities, and even potentially run for office myself to be one of the first people with disabilities elected into the Florida legislature. That is down the road. So in my journey to employment, my biggest barrier that I faced was related to income. And in Florida, we have a lot of issues with income limits, which we'll go into a little bit more in a few minutes. But my biggest issue is not being able to earn a salary greater than $30,000. And when you have a master's degree and you go through all of that extra schooling, it's pretty difficult to have to take a job for a certain salary when you know that you're capable and deserving of earning so much more and being able to earn so much more money. But I had to choose, do I want my services of personal care to be able to get me up and help me get ready for work every day? Or do I just want to live all the time on benefits just so I could have that Medicaid eligibility? And as I was getting ready to graduate and transition into the workforce, I met with benefits planners, I met with case managers, and all of them told me, they discouraged me from working full time. They all just said that I should live in Section 8 housing, that I should work part-time and live off of food stamps. But I knew that after I had worked so hard in my education that just wasn't an option. And I knew that there had to be more out there, but there was such a gap in employment policies. So the way that my situation has been is that I do have health insurance full-time with my job. However, that health insurance does not cover my personal care attendants. That is only covered through Medicaid. And so for me, that was where the big gap was. So Tina, if you can go to the next slide. I call this the vicious cycle of employment. I'm sure Amanda's going to want to tag team this one with me after I explain it. But this is basically the cycle that I faced. I know several other people face when they're trying to get a full-time job. you get your Medicaid eligibility and then you finally get a job, but you earn too much money. And that puts an individual in a really tough place where they're going to lose their Social Security eligibility, they're going to lose their Medicaid eligibility and their care, which means they have to give up their job and they end up right back on disability. So this is the cycle that I know I have been through and have had to make a lot of hard decisions through. And I just think that there needs to be a lot more advocacy around these barriers.
Yep. And I didn't add my own cycle because this is the exact same cycle
Yeah.
that I've gone through. And I saw this slide and I was like, yeah, that is right on money there.
It's like the merry-go-round that just keeps going and going.
Yes, it is. And this is why people don't want to work. Can't tell you how many times I hear, if I go to work, I'll lose everything. And there are ways to not lose everything, but at the same time, it's a very legitimate fear, which is why we wanted to do this, because, in a way we've been there, we've lost things and had to advocate to get them back. And so we want to help people be able to work and not go through some of the things that we've had to go through. So you want to go to the next slide? Okay, so my story is, I have a bachelor's degree in communication, and I worked part-time from 2006 to 2011. Actually, no, 2006 to 2015. I worked at different jobs part-time, and as long as I worked part-time, I got part of my Social Security and got to keep my Medicaid, and everything was okay. But I decided I wanted to be, full-time, and I wanted to do more than that. And my goal was self-sufficiency. I really wanted to do that. So I took a job with vocational rehabilitation in 2016. And, as a very strong advocate who was well informed, I thought I had done everything I needed to do to keep my Medicaid and everything. And within months, I had my Medicaid and everything taken out from underneath me all at one time. And it was a mess. And for the first 8 months that I worked for the state, I was literally driving my wheelchair down the sidewalk 4 miles each way every day, in the rain, in the heat, in the everything, because I couldn't get transportation because I lost my Medicaid. And so the income limits was a big issue for me, still is. We're working on that, as we're going to talk about that. But also a big issue that I have faced in employment is discrimination. I know with my first job that I had, I worked part-time, and I worked in a very small department where there was only one other person, and it was my supervisor. And when she left, I had worked there for several years, and I applied for her position, and I did not get her position, but I was forced to train the person who got her position. And after that person left after 3 or 4 months, I was doing both positions until I just put my foot down and said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So I think, when you have a disability, a lot of times you have an above average work ethic, I feel, because you are so happy to have a job. And I think sometimes people take advantage of that. And that's been my experience with some jobs. People, I don't think sometimes mean to, but they will work you to death because they know that you'll go the extra mile. So I found that was a really big problem. And then I worked for VR for about 2.5 years, and I had a problem because they had accessible bathroom, but it didn't have a door opener. And I was having to kick the door open with my foot, and I kept asking for a door opener, and they wouldn't do it, and they wouldn't do it. Well, one time my shoe came off, and I slid out of my chair, and they finally got me a door opener for the bathroom. And so it shouldn't have taken like me hurting myself for that to happen. And there was just some things that went on, and I was helping people above and beyond what I was supposed to be doing at VR. So in the end, I decided to leave VR and become a work incentives planner. So that's what I do now, and I help people with work incentives planning and social security cases. So that is what I do now. I run my own business called Matriarch Consulting. And did we lose Sarah? Are you still there?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay. I just lost you in my window there.
It's
So
okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amanda.
Go ahead. I know that you were gonna start with services. I might jump in to add some things
Sure.
when you get to VR.
Yeah, no, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Amanda and I just wanted to give a brief overview. I mean, I'm sure many individuals watching are familiar with a lot of these agencies, but just to run through them for those who may not be as connected to know what is out there. So two of the main agencies that I feel like are most helpful for individuals trying to seek employment are the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, APD, and Vocational Rehab. So Amanda and I actually are both on the Agency for Persons with Disabilities Home and Community-Based Waiver. There's the iBudget program, and then the Consumer Directed Care Model, which allows individuals to kind of take more control over their services and purchase their own services, hire their own caregivers. And that is the program I'm on, and I believe Amanda is as well. But that, you can purchase with iBudget or with Consumer Directed Care personal care attendants that will help you be able to get ready for work. I have a caregiver that comes for 1 hour halfway through my workday and helps take me to the bathroom. If I want to go out and get lunch on my lunch break, they take a ride with me, anything in the office that needs to be photocopied or anything like that. So that's been a big help. And without the waiver, I would not be able to get to and from work every single day. They also do supportive employment and job coaching for people that need it, as well as supportive living environments. So that's a brief overview of just some of the employment related services from APD. But with vocational rehab, their job is to help people with disabilities find employment and keep their employment. So that's their sole focus. And they provide a wide variety of services from transitioning out of high school into college or any post-secondary education that you need, supportive employment, career counseling. They teach you self-advocacy. They'll go out to your workplace and kind of take an analysis as to what adaptations you might need. I know for me, the office building that I work in did not have buttons on the doors to get in and out of my own office, but actually the main office building. So VR was great and was able to assist me with getting buttons so that I could independently get in and out of my own office and in and out of my own office building every day, which without that, it greatly hinders my independence. I'm basically stranded outside of my office building until somebody walks by to open the door for me. So that was great. They do technology evaluations and as well as education and vehicle modifications, which was another benefit that VR helped me with. I was able to have my van that I purchased completely modified. So I have all this technology in my van. It has a full computer system with a joystick and a gas and a brake lever. I should have put a picture in here so people could see what my van looks like, but it's pretty neat. It has a button that I press with my elbow to do turn signals and windshield wipers. So without Voc Rehab support, I would not have that, which again, being able to drive myself around to all my work meetings and go to events for my boss, those are all things I would have a very difficult time doing.
Right, so Voc Rehab, vocational rehabilitation, they also do work incentives planning, which is what I do. And that is to take someone who is about to start working and evaluate their Social Security benefits and sit down with the person and say, if you work this many hours at this rate of pay, um, this is how much you can make, this is how long you can make this amount for, these are ways you can keep your Medicaid. It just helps you plan so that you can know what you're getting into before you start working. And Voc Rehab does this after someone first finds a job. Personally, I think it needs to be done before you find the job, and then after you find a job, and then 6 months into the job. And if you get a good work incentives planner, you're going to find somebody that's going to follow up with you. I wanted to say a couple of other things about a couple of these other services. Self-advocacy, the service through VR, is more like job readiness training. They send you to classes that teach you how to dress for an interview, teaches you how to interview, teaches you how to write a resume, helps you put together a portfolio so that you can take it with you on job interviews. So when we talk about self-advocacy as far as VR is concerned, that's what it's called. That's what it is. And then the career counseling and referral is a relatively new service. A law passed recently in the last few years where people cannot automatically go to an adult day training center anymore. So they have to be counseled on competitive employment, which is employment at minimum wage or higher. So even if someone doesn't want to do competitive employment, they at least have to sit down with someone and talk to them about their options and know that it is an option for them, which I think is wonderful. A lot of people that think they have to automatically go to an adult day training center, they really don't understand that there is so much support out there available to them. And I just wanted to take this moment to express that even if you're an individual or a parent who thinks that adult day training is the automatic option, just please go through this service. If you're going through VR, you're going to have to go through it. Just please go through it with an open mind, because there are a lot of options, a lot of support. There's job carving. Job coaches can go in and sometimes create a job specifically for someone. So I just encourage people to not go in with the mindset of, oh, let me sit through this counseling session so I can get my paper signed so I can go to ADT. That still might be what you do, but just go in with an open mind. So I really wanted to stress that. Okay, next slide here. So I wanted to talk about the OneStop Centers. I know I used to live in Panama City and we called them career source centers. But you can go to these centers and sometimes your job coach will take you to them. But they have staff that sit down with you at computers and help you search for jobs, and they'll give you a referral to take to that employer and help you figure out which jobs are right for you. And they have classes on how to write a resume, and they actually hold interviews a lot of times for different employers at these centers. So it's a good idea to go in, sign up, and they're a great resource. And then Social Security, they also have work incentives planning that you can request at any time. Now, it takes a while sometimes, and during COVID, they're not offering it, but you're allowed to request work incentives planning at any time, and you're also allowed to request what's called a benefits planning query, and it is a printout of your entire Social Security history, what you've made, and all your ins and outs since you started getting Social Security, and that is what your benefits planner uses to advise you, but you yourself are able to go in and request that at any time, and they have to give it to you. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide.
We also wanted to talk about some different policies that impact employment. And the biggest one is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which the ADA, how it's referred to, it's going to be 30 years old this year. So that'll be a big deal. I'm kind of excited about that just because I was wanting to go to Washington to be there for the 30th celebration. But now with COVID, they're going to have so many unique online celebrations, which I think is really neat for all of us across the country to be able to experience that together remotely. But obviously the ADA has come a long way, but there's just so much more that needs to be added, that needs to be enforced, especially within the arena of employment policy. But right now, under the ADA, Title I prohibits employers with 15 employees or more from discriminating on the basis of disability. And it also states that employers must grant reasonable accommodations as long as they do not present an undue hardship. Now, whether or not this is always the case with employers is another story, but this is the law. And I know that a lot of employers are trying to open their horizons and see, as they begin hiring more people with disabilities, the stereotypes are changing. Amanda talked about that earlier, how there still is such a stigma of people with disabilities out there. Able-bodied people are 3 times more likely to be hired over an individual with a disability. And as Amanda said, we have better attendance records, we are harder workers, we may need simple accommodations through the ADA, but it doesn't mean that that prevents us from being employed. So I know a program through the Florida Chamber, it was a grant program 2 years ago, they actually gave grants out to small businesses to hire people with disabilities. So it gave them funding to be able to provide whatever accommodations they needed to employ an individual with a disability. And the outcome was amazing. I mean, they were able to see that these individuals were more than capable of working and had just as much to offer as any of their other employees. That's my hope through the ADA. I don't know, Amanda, if you have anything to add, but my hope is that over the next 15 to 20 years, this will only improve and we'll continue to see less discrimination in the workplace.
Right. And I feel like we as people in the disability community, we have a responsibility, because if we're not going after those jobs, then things will always stay the same. But if we continue, I'm sorry.
No, I said the status quo. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but if we continue to fight and we continue to go after these jobs and utilize these services that we're talking about today, Voc Rehab, they have on-the-job training programs that they can bring you into an employer and actually pay for your first 3 months. So the employer doesn't even have to pay. They will pay your salary for them, so you can prove to them. There's just so many things that you can do, and it's our responsibility to show the world that we are capable. And it's not just if you want to work. If you're able to work, you should, because it affects all of us, and it's so important.
And one last thing that I'll add is, that was a great point, Amanda. Everybody, we all have different skills and abilities, and all of us are more talented at other things than each other. And I mean, no matter what disability you have, you are gifted in some way. And there is some job out there that those people can greatly benefit from your skills and abilities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I am a work incentives planner, as I mentioned before. So I thought it was important just to go over a few work incentives that will be helpful if you're working and you get Social Security. These are not all of them by far, but there's just a few of them that I wanted to bring up. So, excuse me, I just want to make sure I get them off the slide right. But the first one is called an IRWE for short. It stands for Impairment Related Work Expense. And this is something you can use if you're on SSI, or if you're in a trial work period with SSI or SSDI, which is the period of time when you first start working. You have an 8-month trial work period. And if you have an expense that you pay out of your pocket that's related to your disability, that you have to spend money on to be able to work, if you need a piece of equipment, or if you're having, in certain cases, they will let you do transportation, something that is out of your pocket that's disability related that you have to do for work, they will take that and divide it in half, whatever it was, and deduct it from your earned income. And then there is also 1619B, and I wanted to mention this because I wish I had known about 1619B before it was too late. 1619B is a provision that you can use when you're just making enough, if you're on SSI and you've just started making too much to qualify for SSI. And you can use it to make more money but still keep your Medicaid. And if you keep working, eventually you're going to get on SSDI, but you want to get the 1619B before that, because if you stop SSI, you haven't applied for 1619B before you start getting SSDI, then you can go back and get the 1619B. But I didn't put the number for the income limit in the slide today because it changes every year, and I didn't want some big controversy, but it's easily Googleable. You can easily Google it. And it's around $32,000 right now. We're going to be talking about a provision that's going to increase that in a little bit, but this allows you to receive Medicaid when you start making too much to qualify for SSI, and then you can still make up to $32,000 and something a year for an individual and keep your Medicaid, which is important if you need services that your employer's insurance is not going to cover. And
Amanda,
then,
can I add one thing on this 1619B? So
yeah.
I actually am lucky enough to be on that provision. I remember Googling all the things when I started getting ready to work, and that was one thing that popped up. But I will tell you that it is a battle at Social Security to get that form filled out.
It is.
Everybody will pretend at that office like they have no idea what that program is. I've talked to multiple supervisors who still don't know what it is. So I would encourage you, if you are interested, email Amanda and I. We can send you information on the guidebook to Social Security. We can help find the provision for you. And I had to print the page out in the handbook and bring it to Social Security just so they could go through the database for their form. So they're not very well versed on this, but we are happy to help you find the resources if you are needing this provision through Social Security.
Yes, you have to literally get the form and fill it out and hand it to them. And once they have that, they really can't argue with it. But until they see that form, they're gonna tell you it never existed. She is true. She is right about that, because I've had to argue it for other people, and yeah. So, okay, and one other thing that I wanted to mention was the student income exclusion. And I learned about this at a recent conference because this didn't exist when I was going to school. But if you are a student enrolled in classes, you can make over, and this is a number you have to Google too, because I didn't want to put exact numbers, but it's over $7,000 a year. I mean, you have monthly limits that you have to maintain, but that is a lot of money, and it's excluded from your earned income with SSI. So that is a huge deal for people, especially if you're a college student and you have a part-time job, that's a lot of money. So next slide. So I also wanted to mention these from Cornell University. Excuse me. They are the ones that I got my certification through as a work incentives planner, and they have two really great resources for you. One is the SSI calculator, and I put the web address there, and the other one is a pass plan. It's kind of like a pass plan generator. You put all your information in it, it spits it out for you, but you can also use a pass plan if you're on SSI to put some money away so that you can save for a specific work goal, like a vehicle or something that you need to save to be able to work. A pass plan can do that. It's called, a pass plan stands for plan to achieve self-sufficiency. And one thing I wanted to mention, I thought I had a slide on this, but SSI and SSDI are two different things, and they have different rules, but SSI is linked to Medicaid and SSDI is linked to Medicare. So that is important to remember. Can we go to the next slide? Oh,
There's your slide.
this is the slide. There it is. So let me just make sure that I didn't miss anything. But yeah, so each of these is tied to the other. And it is possible to have both, and they both have different rules. But if you get SSI and SSDI, your Medicaid will pay for your Medicare premiums. If you just get SSDI, then you have to pay a Medicare premium. I think right now it's $134 a month, but considering the extensive comprehensive coverage that you get, that's not a bad deal if you can afford it. But that's for Medicare Part B. Medicare Part A is the hospitalization, and it is free if you are on SSDI. So, and like with me, I eventually made too much money, and then my SSDI check got too large for me to qualify for SSI. So that's how it worked for me. But it is possible to get both, and the rules are different, so it can be confusing. So if you are in that situation where you possibly could get both, I would definitely consult a work incentives planner. If you have questions, you can email me. I can at least steer you in the right direction. If I don't have the answer, I can find it for you. But just know and consult people. Know what you're getting into before you get into it. That's the easiest way to go about it. Okay.
And I think preparation is key. I mean, Amanda
Absolutely.
and I have kind of learned to navigate this journey on our own. I mean, I know growing up, I didn't have very many older role models with disabilities that were able to pave the way for us and make sure I knew all of the barriers that would be in my path. So I know Amanda and I specifically wanted to do this presentation just to make sure we're trying to educate everybody with our experiences to make sure that others have a much easier path than we did.
Yes.
But I wish I had known all this information when I was searching for jobs.
Absolutely.
So in Florida, we have been working on something called the Working People with Disabilities Program. And it was a 2-year process. The state representative that I was working for at the time, she wanted to get this implemented in the state of Florida. And the legislature came back and said, well, let's do a study. So basically what that means is they give an amount of funding, and then a group called OPAGA, they're in charge of doing studies in the state of Florida. They go through and research, well, how much would this cost state? Would this benefit a lot of people? It's kind of like a pros and con analysis type thing. So they wrote a report. This was back in 2018. The report got released, and the Agency for Healthcare Administration listed in this report a whole bunch of recommendations, which you can see the picture on the slides. And that allowed the legislature then to go in and create a policy around this based on the recommendations, because without having the support from the state agency, ACA, we would not have been able to get this done. So in 2019, it got put into language in our state budget, and it now allows individuals in Florida to make up to $50,000 annually, and allows you to save money or have assets up to $13,000. And that is just for an individual. There's also provisions for married couples, which I would need to look into to get that final number. But this whole process is still finalizing federal approval. We're not at the go-ahead mark quite yet. We're almost there. So we're hoping to get this implemented in the fall. But the only downside to this is that you have to be on a Medicaid waiver to be eligible. And they couldn't open this up to just anybody on Medicaid, because that would have just opened the doors for so many more individuals to be qualified for Medicaid. So this provision is for specifically for people on the Agency for Persons with Disability waivers, and I'm pretty sure they're including individuals on the long-term care waiver, as well as like the spinal cord injury waiver as well. But this is a big deal. This is gonna open up a lot of doors and provide a lot more freedom for individuals with disabilities. I'm so excited about it.
Yes, we are excited, and we are hoping that this is a stepping stone, because we hate that it's just for people on the waiver, but we feel like, I mean, this was a major victory. I mean, Sarah and I kind of were a couple of crusaders when it came to this issue, and they are legislators in Florida right now are just so against Medicaid buy-in, and 45 states already have Medicaid buy-in, but you mentioned Medicaid buy-in, and it's a bad word in the legislature right now. And so for us to get this little bitty window open, we're hoping that it will eventually open the door to something along the lines of Medicaid buy-in. But people on the waiver are really going to have to utilize this program to show them that it is needed and necessary, and people really depend on it for them to budge, because it's been an uphill battle. We're still having trouble getting it actually, enacted here, but we're on the way.
And I eventually would like to see that income limit of $50,000 go up. I mean, granted, that is $50,000 is almost double what it currently is in the state of Florida. So I'm going to take that as a huge victory. But I mean, I believe it should be higher. I think it should be at least $60,000 to $70,000, but we'll get there one day.
Considering it's only like $32,000 now, and the asset limit's only $2,000. This brings it up to $13,000. It's a major victory.
As you said, stepping stone.
Yes. We're not done yet, though, by a long shot, but we're getting there. Okay. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about ABLE accounts. And it's not an employment policy per se, but it does help. And here's how ABLE accounts help, because you can save money in an ABLE account if you qualify. You have to have been disabled with a qualifying condition before a certain age. I can't remember if it's 24 or 26, but
I think it's 26.
26. But if you qualify, and it's a very simple procedure that they go through, and you can get these accounts, and you put money in them. It's up to $100,000 a year. There's monthly limits and some limits, but the point is that it doesn't count against your asset limit when it comes to Medicaid or other federal programs. So the asset limit for Medicaid right now is $2,000, but the money that you have in an Able account is excluded from that. Now, it does not protect unearned income whatsoever. So if you make $1,000 in a month, you still made that $1,000. But if you wanted to save that $1,000 and not have it count as an asset, then you could put it in an Able account and it would be protected. So that is one resource that is very valuable when you're wanting to save money.
What I love about the Able accounts too is that it gives individuals complete freedom and control over their own money themselves. I mean, you have your own credit or debit card that you're able to have access to your own account. I mean, for the longest time, you know, I had a special needs trust. That was all that was out there. And my parents have control over that trust. I'm not allowed to take money out of it myself. They have to write checks on my behalf for anything that I need. And I love that Able accounts are actually, you know, an individual has control over their own money. There's so many things in life that we do not have control over, and this was a huge victory in allowing individuals to just have control over their own financial resources.
Right, and we're going to be talking about trust in a little bit, but Able accounts, the rules on what you can spend an Able account money on are a lot more liberal, I guess you would say, than a trust would be. I mean, it still has to be related to your disability, but it is not as stringent as a trust is. But a trust is unfortunately necessary in some cases, and they do serve a purpose. But Able accounts, if you can use them and they suit your needs, are a lot more flexible. Okay, I think we're all right. So Sarah and I both have had experience with trust, and you have a pooled trust, is that correct?
A guardian trust, yeah, guardian pooled trust.
Okay, so she has a pooled trust, and I have a qualified income trust. So I'm going to let her talk about how her trust works.
Yeah, so mine is just administered by an organization. You pay a percentage. I think mine's they get 3% of the total amount that's in my trust every single year. But in a lot of ways, it's very similar to a qualified income trust. It's a way that you can put your excess income every month into a secure place that it will not count against your Medicaid eligibility. So, you know, when I'm working and I'm making over that $30,000 a year, anything over my monthly limit with Medicaid goes directly into that trust as a savings and does not count against me for any community-based waiver services that I have.
Right. So with me, I have a qualified income trust. I'm not using it at the moment, but it's still there if I need it. I was using it when I worked at VR because I made, I think it was $130 over the monthly income limit for Medicaid. So I had to put $130 a month in there. So unlike Able accounts, trusts do sheltered earned income. So whatever earned income that you make that is over what would qualify you for Medicaid, you're able to put in there. The major downside is that what you can spend it on is very, very limited, and they are very strict about it. So it cannot be administered by the person that has the disability. It has to be either like Sarah has it with the organization or a family member or someone you trust to do it, because technically the money is not yours. It's for your care, but it is not yours. And you don't have access to it, and that's why it works, because someone else has to access it for you. And it is important to know that after your final expenses, if you pass away and you still have money in the trust, it reverts back to the state.
And one thing I'll add too, I don't know about the qualified income trust in terms of what you can use yours for, but I know the pooled trust, I cannot use it on anything related to shelter, income, utilities, anything that you would use your Social Security dollars for. You're not allowed to pay anything out of your trust with. But if I have like a cable bill or I have a car repair for my adaptive van, what I do is you just submit the receipt. I submit my receipt to the organization, the Guardian Trust people, and then they go ahead and pay that on my behalf out of my trust. So like you said, anything with Social Security, I think it's food, shelter, and clothing, right. I think it is. You're not allowed to use your trust for, but anything outside of that, at least the pool trust is pretty flexible.
Yeah, I think the pool trust is a little bit more flexible than the trust that I have, the qualified income trust. I had to use mine for mostly medical. I used mine for dental services. So there are some loopholes that if you talk to a really good work incentives planner, they're going to clue you in on. I won't do that because I could do a whole session on work incentives planning, but there are some ways to get around some things if you really need something, but trusts are strict. But as we said, it's necessary to shelter income sometimes because, you know, with Medicaid paying for services that employer insurance does not cover, you know, 99.9% of the time, you know, you have to do this sometimes. So.
All right, so to wrap up, we wanted to just kind of give some tips on how to advocate for your needs in the workplace. And these are just, you know, things that Amanda and I have learned on our own journeys as we've done, but these are just some key bullets. Know what you need, know what accommodations you need at the workplace. Like I know I need a headset when I talk to people on the phone all day long at work, and I can't hold the phone and take notes at the same time. So I had to ask for a headset. I also had to ask my employer for a raisable desk that fits my power wheelchair so that I can be seated comfortably and not be hunched over and hurt my back all day long at a lower desk. And know what your rights are. You know, remember the ADA, know what you are eligible for, and don't be afraid to ask for it and stand up for what you need. I know it can be pretty intimidating to have to, at least for me, I want to act like I'm just like everybody else. That's just my tendency. So I hate to ask for anything that might make me appear different. But that's just my personality. Some people are better at standing up for themselves. I'm working on that. And if your employer is reluctant, you know, utilize your outside agencies, go to vocational rehab for any additional support that they may be able to help you. And if the employers are still hesitant, use it as a red flag. You know, I interviewed for a lot of jobs that were multiple hours away of where I was living. And so I asked for a phone interview, and those jobs did not want to give me phone interviews. And I knew right then, I was like, if you can't accommodate me with an interview process, there's no way they're going to be able to accommodate me in the workplace. So
well, it's just really important to know that Voc Rehab will help pay for these things if that's the issue that they're having. So go to these places that we've talked about. I think we're getting toward the end of our time here, but we wanted to make sure that you knew where to go. You know, if they're saying it's a money issue, call VR. So, I think that covers everything that we wanted to talk about, though. And here are our email addresses, and we're very passionate about this topic, so we will answer you. We're both very busy individuals, but we will get back to you eventually. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email us, either of us. And we thank you for the people who were on today. We thank you so much. And for the people who watched our session, thank you.
Amanda, this is Arizona. You did a good job. You did a good job.
Thank you, Arizona.
Thank you, Arizona.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks for being